Hey, do you see this appointment? I didn't even schedule it. I didn't even talk to this person. Manychat did everything while I was asleep. So I'm gonna share the exact automations I set up to generate 3 to 5 booked appointments per post completely on autopilot using AI. So if you're a creator looking to capture more leads in your DMs, get ready to steal this strategy right now. By the way, my name is Wally Nguyen. I've been doing DM sales and automations for the last 8 years. You can check out my Instagram in the bio below. So before we get started, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Manychat for more tutorials like this. And let's hop right into mine. Where we're gonna start is we're setting up 3 flows, right? So number 1, we're setting up a DM flow. So meaning someone DMs us a keyword and then we'll set up an automated response. We'll set up a comment flow. So that means someone comments on our post and then we set up a flow for that, right? And then we're also gonna set up our AI step. And essentially how our process works is we promote a lead magnet on the front end. People opt in for that lead magnet. And then once they opt in, we have the DM automation take over at first to automate some of the conversation. And then once that happens, it then hands off to an AI. Okay, so we're hopping into the flow builder now. And so you'll see that the first thing we need to set up is our trigger, right? So if you click over into here on the list side, and then you'll see that I have a trigger set up. There's a couple pieces of logic that we can do here for our trigger in terms of a keyword, right? And if I click this button up here, it says message is, then it goes message contains whole word, message begins with, message doesn't contain. So there's a lot of different options that we can use for the logic, but for the sake of this example and how we set it up for our accounts, we're gonna have a specific keyword be the trigger, right? So message is. So message is, we have test, and then I'm gonna put some common ones in here that people also say. So it's like, sometimes they'll put it in quotes, right? And other times they'll like mistype it, or they'll like say this, right? So anyway, it's good to put some variations in there if you want the keywords to be exact, because I like it to be very exact. But anyway, so that's what we'll do first. So test, and test. So we'll save this as our trigger, boom, and then we'll go over here. So because this is gonna be our DM automation trigger, right? So we're giving out a lead magnet. We're gonna go, so for all intents and purposes, we're gonna do this on Instagram. So Instagram message. And then the first thing we wanna type is just kind of like a welcome message, right? So I'm like, hey name. Here's a link to your freebie. And so that could be your like guide, PDF, etc. Right? Here's a link to your freebie. Hope you get a ton of value out of it. And then you can put here, link, right? And we'll add this button right here. Button, we'll do click here to make it easy. So I have like the emoji keyboard, but then yeah, I always find that like if you do like a little emojis on there, it makes people want to click it. So just little fun fact. Anyway, so we'll keep going. So in this URL, we're gonna put our freebie link, right? But obviously, and for the sake of this example, I'm gonna put, google.com just to have something that goes here. You can also do some cool stuff with like triggers on this link. So, if people click it, you can have different actions and stuff like that. So there's some cool integrations you can make right here. So for us on our side, we might add a tag right here and track this thing. So if you wanted to do that, you could just click this little drag this thing, add the action, and then the action would be like, it would be add tag, right? And you could add whatever tag you wanted to add right here. So anyway, I'm just going to delete that for now, but that's how you do that. So anyway, it says, hey name, I'm sending you a link right now. Here's the link, click here. And then we're going to end our flow with a data collection step. So this is really key, because if I just used a normal text block, I couldn't set up an automated follow-up. But because I have the ability to use a data collection block right here, I can ask a question, and then if they don't answer my question, then I can set up a timer that, so see this spot that says if contact has not responded. So we can set up an automated follow-up to make sure that we get better throughput on this, right? So anyway, so here's the link, boom, enter a question. So the question that we always ask is something like this. By the way, what got you interested in X? So this is your freebie, right? So by the way, what got you interested in my guide on making money in stock? By the way, what got you interested in this freebie? And we kind of point back up. And then, for all intents and purposes, we're definitely going to add some delays in here because we need those delays. just a couple seconds, nothing too great, but just that way it doesn't pop out all at one time. I find that if there's no delays, then sometimes it freaks people out if you send it line by line like this. And this is how I structure mine, because I like to send it kind of line by line and broken up, so it's not overwhelming for the user, right? But this is how we would set it up for any of our client accounts. Hey, I'm gonna send you a link. This is your freebie. I hope you get a ton of value out of it. Here's the link. By the way, what got you interested in the freebie, right? So that's our DM automation trigger. So we're gonna set this as live, right? So this is good to go. And then, like I said before, if we wanted to set an automated follow-up, we could do this right here. If contact has not responded, we could set up a follow-up like, just making sure you saw this, something like that, right? And if you wanted to edit the timer on that, you'd go in here, go to the data collection step, click contact reply, and then you see where it says data collection expires in 30 minutes. So you would just change this little timer right here to be however long you want that follow-up to be. So anyway, so that is a pretty big rundown of the DM flows, right? So now that we got this set up, we're gonna set up the comment flow to tie into this, right? So we'll go to Untitled over here, DM test, right? Automations. Now we need to create a new one, right? So new automation, start from scratch. We're gonna set up a comment trigger. So we'll start with the trigger. Click over here, new trigger, comment on your post or reel, click that. And then we'll set it for all posts in reel, just for the sake of this, right? And then we're gonna make sure I put in our keywords in here. So test, test, test. Oh yeah, we need to put this in for right? Something like this. So these are some pretty common mistypos and stuff as well. So I always like to include those. So hit continue. We'll have our reply set up. So these are fine for now. I mean, obviously you can customize them if you want to, but for this, not necessary. Hit save, and this is good to go, right? So now we got the comment trigger set up. And so the first step is still Instagram, just like before. Click that. And so the comment trigger is really interesting because the comment reply only allows you to send one message, right? So we have to send a message right here. What we basically have to do is get them to opt into a message. So how I do it is like this. I say, appreciate you commenting on my post. I'll send the freebie your way ASAP, but just tap the button below first. So and then I'll put this, and I'll just put something like let's chat. And you can customize. So we add this action in, mark as open, and then we'll go to next step, right? The next step would be going to start an automation. As you can see with next step, with the actions, you can add in a lot of different things, right? But we're gonna use what we call start automation. And then once we use that, it's gonna go to select automation up here. We'll reselect our DM test, the one we just set up before, right? Boom, and then now we've got this set up. So this now can be set as live. And so now we have our comment trigger set for test, and then it will flow all through. Then we can go over to our automations one more time. And then now we're gonna set up our AI step. So hold on one second. Let me go ahead and rename this. That way we have it named. And then we'll go to new automation one more time. Go to start from scratch. Okay. And then we're gonna go to AI step, right? And so the initial prompt is just basically some general context, right? So, what we're gonna be setting up here is an AI appointment setter. And so we're going to go here, tell AI what to do. So we're gonna say, act as if you are a world-class appointment setter. Sometimes contextual knowledge about the product, right? So, this is a life insurance account. So we have a lot of life insurance information in here, just so that way you can like handle general questions from people and stuff like that. So that's a great thing to add for context, right? So think of it kind of like, so you tell the AI what to do and you give it context. And then once you give it context, you'll be able to click this button and then it'll hit generate, and then it'll give you the actual prompts afterwards. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Give AI context. So I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna copy paste the same thing for the sake of this example, right? And we're gonna hit generate. Okay, so the next part I wanna break down is kind of like how this is all set up from top to bottom. So the first part is collects users' name to personalize the appointment setting process, collects users' emails, right? All these steps are kind of broken out. So essentially what's happening here is when you set up this AI, it will follow the steps that you set up in this process, right? So you need to tell it, basically give it the step-by-step flow of how you want it to ask questions and how you want it to treat the chats, and then it will do that for you, right? And so the limit here is about 10 steps. And so you have to be able to compress your process into 10 steps. So as you can see, I filled in some information right here. And so these steps are not too bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in some steps, the steps that I would use for setting up the process that we've talked about for this video today. So give me just a second. Okay, so I filled this out now. And so I want to break down exactly the process that we would use. And so I break this down at a high level. We have very custom prompts that we use for each one of these steps. And that's what you're going to need to do on your end to be able to implement this strategy, right? But I'm going to give you the context and kind of the flow of what you need to set up, and then that way you can go on your end and create a prompt that works really well for you, right? The reason I'm not giving you a prompt specifically is because these are very custom for your business, right? So that's why I'm giving you the structure and the framework, and this is exactly how I would approach it for creating it for a new client, right? So that being said, so this is an appointment setter, right? And so this framework is based on an appointment setting framework that I've used to train like actual appointment setters to do this like in the DMs for people. And so I just took that framework and plugged that into this AI, and now we can use this for using AI basically, right? So cool. That being said, the first step is find out the problem or concern, right? So you're gonna come up with your own prompt for this, obviously, and you're gonna also sometimes maybe need to guide it on the question that you need that needs to be asked. Find out the problem or concern. That's the first step. And so remember that the context for this AI is that it's getting handed off after someone basically like gets a lead magnet, right? So they get a lead magnet, they get asked that question. So by the way, what got you interested in X? And then they're answering that question, and then the AI is taking over right there, right? So first thing we need to do is find out the general problem or concern that they're having, because they wouldn't have opted in for your lead magnet if they didn't have a problem or concern, right? And then number two, we want to find out their why or reason for talking to you, right? So like, essentially what's going on, what made them want to message in essentially, right? And then the step after that is we want to basically pivot this conversation into a sales conversation. And what I mean by that is that just because someone messaged in for your lead magnet doesn't mean that you need to start like selling them right away. And so if I was training a live rep or a person to do this, I would say the same thing. And so that's why we train this into the AI. So we need to like actually pivot this conversation somehow into a sales conversation before we just straight up start to book them or try to book them, right? That being said, once that happens and we pivot them over, then the next step is we want to ask more open-ended questions to uncover the pain and problem of the prospect. So the reason this is very specific, and the reason I'm making it very specific and pointing out again, is that there's a big difference between the problem of a prospect and the pain of a prospect, right? So someone can have a problem, but then the pain is much deeper. Like that's something that like keeps them up at night, right? So I think that's an important distinction that I want to point out here, and that goes into essentially qualifying someone, right? So anyway, so that's the next step, and then after that, we're gonna basically we've uncovered the pain, we understand their problem, right? And then now we're gonna give them a diagnosis, and then confirm if that diagnosis is something that they can relate with and things like that, right? And so once we give them that diagnosis, we go to the next step, which is we're going to connect your product or whatever it is that you offer to the conversation and give it contextual relevance to the things that was said above before, right? And then ask them if they want help implementing that, right? And so depending on what your product is, depends if you have a course where you help people like learn something, or maybe learn like implement a skill, or if you have like a coaching business, right? This is obviously going to connect differently, right? But essentially we're giving people the way that our product is going to help them in a very quick way, snappy way, and then we're going to basically ask them if they want help doing that or implementing that for themselves, right? So then once they say that, we're going to suggest a discovery call and then confirm if they would like to book one. So that's key, because I'll always like to ask permission before I drop links, and then they're going to confirm with us, and then we say drop that. We obviously drop an appointment link, and that's the whole sequence for setting up this AI appointment setter. So once you get all that set up and you built your prompts out for each one of those steps, then you're really in business, right? And so I want to finish this up by talking about this context step. Right here where it says act as if you're a world-class appointment setter for the business to set appointments efficiently, ensuring you gather right? So this is giving more context to the AI. Amazing. You can also put in all that information in here that I was mentioning before, right? So if you have like a knowledge base, FAQ, stuff like that, all that information is great to put in here, because then now as the prospect or person is going through this AI process, it's going to have all the information it needs to be able to answer most questions. Now, the final step for all this is just putting it all together, right? So now we've got our AI step set up. We're going to set this as live, right? We need to select the channel before we set it as live. So we're set it as Instagram channel. Come over to our automations over here. We'll go ahead and rename this to our AI step. We have that set up as we go, right? This is all good to go there. Now what we'll do is we'll go to our DM test, come over here. We'll come back and edit this flow, right? So editing our automation over here that we set up before. What we're going to do is when it says, by the way, we got you interested in X, now once it replies to that, we're going to go to the next step, right? And then what we're going to do is now have that go start automation, and then hit select automation, and then connect that to our AI step, right? And then pick automation. Once I update this all together, right? Boom, that is the whole setup and process. If someone DMs you for a lead magnet, they'll get the freebie. They're going to get what got you interested. They'll answer the question. That'll hand over to our AI step, which now will follow that process that we laid out from before. And the same process will happen from comment triggers as well, right? So people comment our keyword, they'll get that first initial message we planned out before. They'll get this message over here on this side, and then it'll hand off to our AI appointment setter. And then now you have a hands-free appointment booking machine. If it's helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. Definitely subscribe to Manychat for more tips. And if you want to chat more with me, my IG is in the description below. Thank you for watching.